It is a magnificent day to just show up. Hi, everyone. Yvonne Heath here, nurse turned author, speaker, changemaker, and your host. Welcome to Navigating Grief with Heart and Humor, where we talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, transitions, end of life, and all the messiness in between, long before it arrives, and diffuse the fear so we can live fully now. Or that is at least what we aspire to do. Most of the time, we have been in the deep trenches of grief, crisis, trauma, tragedy, and realized how ill prepared we were. We lived our lives reactively, not proactively. We pretended we were strong, and when we were not, we didn't reach out for help when we truly needed it. And we want to do it differently from now on. The greatest thing that we can do is be the very best example or very best version of ourselves. And that means that we are a great example to others. And that is what I aspire to do as I share this with you. I am learning, unlearning, evolving, and growing each and every day. And I'm just so honored that you are here with me. So, as always, I like to share a fun fact. And my fun fact for today is that this is the shirt that I wore when I did my TEDx talk. And that was just a very huge bucket list thing. Well, it wasn't on my bucket list until I became an author in 2015. I had never even considered being an author or a speaker. And once I didn't really choose, it chose me to be on this road. I thought the greatest thing would be to do a TEDx talk, my goodness. And so the funny thing is, I thought, you know what? I don't spend a lot of money on clothes, but I'm just going to go all out and I'm going to find a great shirt and pants and everything that will make me feel really, really good while I'm on stage because I knew I'd be so nervous. Well, I searched high and low and I wasn't going to spare any expense. And I found this shirt and it felt like the right shirt. And it was $12. Yet another lesson that the right things aren't always the most expensive things. And I just love sharing that because I am a big believer in, we don't have to spend a lot of money on things. I would rather save my money and spend them on doing things with people. So, anyways, that's my fun fact. And so now, as we dive into a deeper conversation, as always, I want to take a moment to just land here, get comfy. I have my feet just planted on the floor so I can feel grounded. And this is part of my self-care ritual to just forget about everything else that's calling me away, to be fully present here, to quiet the noise in my mind. And I do this by taking 2 slow, deep breaths. And I invite you to do that with me with your eyes closed, open, whatever resonates, just so you can land here and set an intention. What is it that you need from our time today? And so I'm just going to close my eyes, take 2 deep breaths. Just let everything else go. And set my intention for our time together. Okay, well, let's begin. In the last few episodes, we talked about buried and carried grief that we take with us. Maybe something happened 50 years ago, and at that time we weren't well supported, or we didn't even know how to grieve, and we just wanted to be strong for everyone, or we were young and we just buried it, and now we carry it. And there's always repercussions to that. It just kind of builds up and we pay the price mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, some way, somehow. And that realization that there are many forgotten grievers and we have buried and carried grief, many of us do, and it is certainly worth exploring. And then last week, I just shared a beautiful, heartwarming, heart-wrenching story about a wonderful young man who died in our community. And I know that When he took his last breath, there were many community members, family, friends, neighbors there by his side with the family. And that was just, it just really had a profound effect on me and really spoke to my heart. So I also then attended the visitation, and the family had a funeral and a celebration of life. And I just think it's so extraordinary because there is everything my message is about, that grief and joy. Let's create the space to grief. It's a yes, and we must grieve and allow those hard feelings, however we need to express them. And let's celebrate this beautiful soul who was with us as long as he was. And, again, it's just, we do not have these conversations, or I'll say in the past, we hadn't normalized these conversations. And that's why I will continue to talk about this forever, how extraordinary it was that so many people were able to just show up. I imagine that it wasn't easy for any of them, and they did it anyways because it wasn't about them and they wanted to honor their friend. So I want to touch on, and I know I've mentioned this, and repetition is how we learn. So when we talk about buried and carried grief, it is never too late to go back and mourn your loss, mourn your sadness. And buried and carried grief can only be released or expressed when we convert our grief to mourning. So again, let's talk. Grief is that, how I explain it, that mental, physical, and emotional reaction to loss, transitions, change, whatever makes your heart ache. And mourning is that external expression of our grief. We talk about being a death phobic, grief phobic society. We are truly a mourning phobic society, because if you're grieving and you're quiet and you're keeping it all into yourself, that's kind of what society wants you to do. And that's what we need to change. We need to invite that external expression of emotion, whether it is sadness, anger, irritability, whatever it may be, whatever somebody needs to do to get those hard feelings. They demand to be heard and felt. They demand to be heard and felt. And so the mourning is expressing that, letting it out. And, sometimes we don't even know what we're going to need to do in that moment. It's grief is it's like an amazing animal. it just, sometimes it feels like it attacks you. Sometimes it feels like it's just sitting with you and you just feel this complete sadness. Other times you're infuriated that it has shown up in your life uninvited, unannounced. And we want to ignore it. It doesn't make it go away. And when we talk about time heals all wounds, no, it doesn't. No, converting your grief to mourning and expressing it and verbalizing it and feeling it is what is going to help you, to help loosen those grips of grief. And that beautiful language, converting grief to mourning, I learned from my amazing friend, Maria Kliavkoff, who started the Healthy Mourning Revolution. And you can find information at healthymourning.com. She had studied with Dr. Alan Wolfelt, who is also an extraordinary human who has the Center for Grief and Loss I believe it's in Colorado. And he studied with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. So it's this beautiful ongoing learning from pioneers that started in the 60s and 70s. And there were so many concepts that people were not ready to hear. They didn't want to hear it. And many of us still don't. People like Dr. Alan Wolfelt and Maria, they help us to understand that converting that grief to mourning is something that it's so personal. And the people who are surrounding and loving those people who are in the deep trenches of grief, who want to fix it. I say, yes, I know. I am guilty as well. When someone is hurting, oh my goodness, I want to fix it. And then I stop and I pause and I remind myself of all that I've learned. This is their journey. They need to convert their grief to mourning. And the greatest gift that we can give them is to create a safe space for them to do that. How long does it take? As long as it takes. Grief or grieving someone that you loved with all your heart and soul, that grief never goes away. It's just something that, as you express it, convert your grief to mourning in very healthy ways, not by burying it with busyness, alcohol, other addictions. It's that doesn't convert it to mourning or help us along the healing. It's just like, there it is, wherever you go, there you are. If you haven't actually felt those hard feelings, and they are hard feelings. Oh, I mean, I think of times in my life that I was grieving so, it was like I felt like every cell of my body was in pain. It felt like physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, all just swirling around. And then I'd be fine, and then I wasn't, and then I was fine, and then I wasn't. And I didn't really feel in those times like the best thing to do was to express how I was feeling, right? As many of us, I wanted to be strong for other people. I wanted to pretend I was fine when I wasn't. And looking back, I realized what a great disservice that was to myself and to others. Because when we acknowledge and allow our feelings, whatever they may be, it diffuses our sorrow, even if it's just temporarily. And what a beautiful example to others. I will never again hold back my tears, whether I am in the grocery store, at school, wherever I am, or my anger, or whatever it may be. And I've also made it I've created rituals, and I know the things that are going to help me convert that grief to mourning. I know that going out in nature and just having a good cry and moving is so important. It's like I tell people, don't wait for the spirit to move you, move the spirit. Move. Emotions, energy and motion, they need to be released and expressed. So whatever you feel will be helpful, or if you're not sure, I invite you to lean in and start to explore, converting my grief to mourning. That's very interesting. How can I do that? And of course, my lovely friend Maria, she has the Healthy Morning Revolution, as I said, and also a beautiful book that helps you. She shares how she converted her grief to mourning, like 52 ways, or it was 52 weeks or something. So many beautiful moments that she shared. And when I read it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's something I can do. Oh, that makes sense to me. And again, I know this is a practice, right? How do we get good at things? We're going to talk more about practicing. Oh my goodness. Where do we have these conversations before grief arrives? We don't. Generally speaking, we are reactive, not proactive. Wouldn't it be wonderful to change that? Create some muscle memory, practice. This wasn't easy for me in the beginning well, grief is never easy. But I now know, as soon as I hear news, I witness sadness or grief, I know the things that I'm going to do to express myself. I will light my candle, my beautiful stained glass candle that has, and then I will write the person's name down or whatever I'm grieving, and I will write it in a heart. I will make myself go outside. I will make myself move and walk, because I know it is easy for me to get paralyzed and frozen in my sadness, in my anger, and whatever it may be. I need to move. And I will just, I check in. How am I doing? And sometimes I think I have no idea right now. And that's okay. Just keep moving. And I really am very intentional, and I remain very aware of how easy it is to fall into burying that grief with busyness. I used to do it with red wine for many, many, many years. I would just feel such pain. I would numb it, woke up the next day feeling worse and disappointed in myself that I drank too much wine, and those hard feelings were still there. So that doesn't work. I can, however, I have an addictive personality, and I know this, and I can just get lost in watching Netflix and tidying and just busy work, and then be so tired at the end of the day. So I'm more intentional about checking in and seeing what I am doing. What am I, and of course I'll allow myself, like if I want a day to just be in my pajamas all day and do nothing, of course I will allow that. What I do want to remember is, are these things that are feeding my heart and soul, or are these things that I'm going to feel worse? That are going to, at the end, I will feel like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. If you want to eat a great big barrel of ice cream because you're sad and you think, yeah, no, I'm going to be okay with this, go for it. If you're diabetic and you're going to do that, and you're going to feel that much worse because you're going to be totally ill, maybe stop yourself, and before that grief arrives, think of a better way for you, right? To convert your grief to mourning. Think of ways that will feed you instead of, it's interesting, somebody once said to me, why do we reward ourselves with things that are not good for us? And I found that it kind of hit me, because I used to, I don't know, drink silly, like a pop every day, and say, I just want to have a pop every day. I deserve it. And she said, it's funny how we reward ourselves with things that aren't good for us. And I thought, something to think about, and be aware. So maybe now I'll just have one once in a while as opposed to every day. But the point is that also in grief and mourning and expressing yourself and doing what you need to do, maybe just really continue to check in and we know there are some things that if we do them, we're going to end up feeling worse, right? It is not going to be helpful. So, I mean, if I get lost in tidying and then my house is really clean and I wasted it in my head, I wasted a day, or if I watch Netflix all day, that's all, again, it's all fine. I just want to make sure that I've said, yeah, I'm totally good with this, as opposed to, oh, geez, I could have done this and that would have helped me feel much better. But I always, always, always make certain that I get out in nature and that I move and I move and I move. And here's the thing to remember in all of this. Why would we be good at this? Why would we know about converting grief to mourning? I first learned this concept in my 50s. So with every time you listen to some information, maybe you learn something, you watch a podcast, read a book, find someone who can support you in this, who you can learn from, you can learn together. This is how we create change. We aren't just magically good at all of this stuff. So please, please, please be gentle with yourself and others as we are creating social change, changing the paradigm, realizing that we need to create these safe spaces to allow expression, to allow mourning. We do not always need professionals. We need our compassionate communities, family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, whoever it may be. And we can also learn to ask for what we need. Don't you think that's a wonderful idea? Oh my goodness, I could talk about this all day long. It's been extraordinary to learn all of this, because every single concept that I share was new to me. And I was nervous and I felt fearful learning all this. And I knew, so I was smart enough to know what I didn't know and that I needed to learn, because grief is not easy for me. Mourning is not easy, being vulnerable. And yet I know that it's the most courageous expression. And I know that is truly being the very best version of my authentic, flawed self, and being the very best example to others. And so, as we move forward together, lean into it. Understand that grief is felt in anything that makes your heart ache: divorce, diagnosis, job loss, mental health issues, children leaving home, children not leaving home, even in good transitions. We do not need to compare our grief. If someone is having a really hard time in the situation and you're thinking, it's the same situation, but I'm doing okay, that's all right. We can't make ourselves have or not have certain feelings. If we just allow whatever feelings we have, then that is the best that we can do. I remember when a friend of mine, her dad died, and wow, they had a very challenging relationship. He was very abusive. And when he died, she said, "Can I be honest?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And she said, "This is a relief." And I said, "I can't imagine why it wouldn't be." And we just hugged. She didn't need to make herself cry or try to force feelings or try to be more upset because somebody else was. Our feelings are our feelings. That's all there is to it. We can't force our feelings. We can choose what we do with them. And expressing them is the greatest thing we can do. And the more we learn about this, it's truly fascinating. It's all fascinating. So I do encourage you to keep showing up. Be a part of this journey. I am so grateful for you. Go to my website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. There's so many wonderful resources. We're always updating our list of resources. And of course, I have my book and my Love Your Life to Death and my program, Get Ready for Grief. I believe that the more resources we have on this journey we call life, the greater we will be able to navigate life, grief, death, and everything in between. So thank you for spending this time with me. I'm always so honored. It is such a privilege to be here with you. And I will share my call to action as always. If you want to be able to just show up for yourself and others, if you want to be able to convert your grief to mourning, plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Take good care and namaste, my beautiful friends. Bye for now.